Good evening and welcome to the Town of Eastchester Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for March. It's Tuesday, March 9th, 2021. And while everyone's getting settled in, I'll just go over some of the ground rules. Firstly, we observe Robert's Rules of Parliamentary Order to conduct the meeting. Secondly, we dispense with a couple of items that we ordinarily would do with in-person meetings, but tonight's meeting is a remote meeting via Zoom. So items like the pledge and the roll call will not be conducted this evening. Also, just as a point of order, any matter that is on for first time will not be decided tonight, as all applicants know, as an essential term or condition to their application. Matters are reviewed, deliberated upon, and then decided upon at subsequent meetings. The reason why I mention that is because our calendar is printed a year in advance, and we generally meet the second week of every month, the second Tuesday, and our coming meetings are for April, May, and June. We do not meet in July and August and December. So if you're contemplating a application, you should do so pursuant to the calendar. Okay, so a couple of things. Firstly, I make a motion to approve the minutes of the February 9th, 2021 ZBA meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cahalan, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now, we have one matter on for resolution, two on for new business. For those matters, those two new business items, which will have a public hearing component, just to follow, the applicant and board members will speak firstly. There will be an open public hearing at some point thereafter, and if people who are looking to participate would like to comment, you're going to use the raise hand feature on Zoom, or it's *9 if you are calling from a phone. Our Deputy Town Attorney Robert Tedisco will acknowledge you and invite you to speak. Please unmute your microphone and state your name and address for the record. Okay, now. First item on the calendar is an item on for resolution.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, I have an application to approve application number 2103, which is 48 Harney Road. All in favor?
Thank you, Mr. DeMarco. Is there a second?
Mr. Nerzia?
Here, second.
Okay.
Approved.
Okay, good. To the vote. Mr. Cahalan?
No.
Mr. Miller?
No.
Mr. Nerzia?
Yes.
Mr. DeMarco?
Yes.
I vote no, which is contrary to the motion. So
I have a motion to deny then.
okay, let's amend that motion.
Application's been denied.
Excuse me. Just as a point of order, Mr. DeMarco's motion was to approve. So we have, I'm sorry, my fault. Let me go back through and poll the board. Mr. Cahalan, your vote was no?
Still is.
Okay, Mr. Miller?
No.
Okay, Mr. Nerzia was yes? Mr. DeMarco was yes?
Yes.
I was no. So the application has been denied 3-2. Okay. Next item is new business. That is number 21-08, 65 Joyce Road. So before the applicant has an opportunity to present, I just want both of these new business items to know that their applications have been marked submitted. So their application, their presentation, documentation are all public record. So when you are ready to proceed, you may just want to let you know you don't need to read the entire application. Because it's been reviewed by the board. You can if you'd like. It's not going to either help or hurt your application. It's entirely up to you. Having said that, the applicant now can proceed on item number 2.
Good evening, Chairman Pirlo. This is Max Parangi. I'm the architect of record on the project. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for allowing us to present this ZBA variance relief request. I will leave the floor to Mr. Papa and Karen, his wife, just to present themselves since they're residents of your town for a few minutes. And then I will pick up again if there are any technical questions about the variance. Tom?
Great, thanks, Max. Good evening, everybody. My name is Tom Verapapa. My wife, Karen, she's actually running a little late coming home from work, so she'll join us momentarily. But, just a quick introduction. We purchased the house about 8 years ago, been residents here in Eastchester. We have 2 kids, Maya, who's our daughter, 7 years old, who's attending Ann-Hutton, and Ethan, our 4-year-old, who will be in Waverly next year. So, we really enjoy this community. My mom actually grew up in Eastchester, so, we came up from the city 8 years ago, and it's just a wonderful place to live. When we bought the house, it did go through some minor renovations and additions, and we felt the flow just wasn't really brought out correctly. There was an addition put on that kind of was piecemealed and it wasn't really thought out. And as our family grows and we grow as a family, we look to Max and his expertise to really look at the layout and really make it flow that our families can really grow within the household. The flow doesn't really mix when we have family members over. People are kind of bumping into each other. But what Max and team's going to produce today and present does make sense for our family, and we're just looking forward to the opportunity. So I'll turn it over to Max to kind of dive into any technical questions. And thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Margaret, by the way, for guiding us throughout this whole process with the paperwork. We are seeking a variance, an area variance at the rear of the property is it's exactly 182 square feet. Is not a huge variance in terms of square footage. We, as I have noted in my letters to the board and in general, my comments, the house, I think it had 1 or 2 additions or remodeling in the past years or decades. Very piecemeal, honestly. When I first went to meet with Tom and Karen Papa, the entire floor, if you look at our sheet A2, the first floor demolition plan, you will see that, there was an entrance to the basement from the garage, and apparently they changed that. So right now you enter into a laundry room. From the laundry room, you enter into the kitchen. Then the dining room, there is an addition in the back, which is like a few steps below. And
Excuse me, Max?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say, is there anyone on your team that can share the screen, because it's the public meeting? So, okay, thank you.
So if you see here on here, basically, I'm going to point out with the pointers, and then you'll see. So I think originally there was an entrance here to the stairs below, which is now blocked up, and the entrance it's from this mudroom's laundry room. The kitchen, it's a galley kitchen, very narrow, and then the dining room, and then this was an addition in the back, which is, by the way, I would say maybe 9 or 10 inches lower than the level of the house. For whatever reason, I cannot really understand why they made it at a lower level. We decided to, just create almost like a free flow. If you see what we did, we created a separate laundry room, a more formal dining room. We put everything at the same level. And it's an open flow, basically, between dining room, the new kitchen, and access to the rear yard. What you see here, basically, is the area relief request, the kitchen. We added the kitchen. We put it in the back of the property. There is a direct connection to the laundry room, to the garage. There's a half a bath, and it's an open floor with a new family room. Everything is at the same level. There is no setback requirements for this project. We are conforming to all the setbacks. We are not touching more than 30% of the front elevation. I did run this by Mr. King, and James was okay with the minor alterations of the front entrance. This is the existing front, and now can you put a proposed front? We kept most of the roof. We did some cosmetic work. I would have loved, honestly, to be able to have bigger front doors, the picture door and the two doors in the living room on the left side of the entrance. These two on the left side of the entrance. This window composition here. I would have loved to be able maybe to play around with that a little bit, but for now we kept it simple, and we try to stay under the 33% threshold. Other than that, we talked about the area variance, we talked about the overall flow. The reason for the zoning application was that, I will reiterate, it was because there was a terrible flow. And so we felt it would be helpful to have this extra 180 square feet in the back to create the proper first flow. And then with that said, I'll be quiet and ready to answer any questions of the board members and the chairman.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. At this time, we reserve the opportunity for the board to ask questions and/or make comments. So I'll start on my left to Mr. Cahalan. Mr. Cahalan, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, I mean, I appreciate the presentation and why the family wants to open it up, but I would like the architect to talk specifically about the variance that he's requesting. He kind of talked about what was going inside the house. I didn't hear much about the 7.8% variance. Could you point that out on your drawings for the
on the floor?
They can see it
to the side. It's basically the hatched area at the back of the property. Mr. Calvin, it's like 18 feet 4 inches by 15 feet. It adds up to approximately 182 square feet.
Okay.
And it's only on one floor.
That's
not
what
on 2 stories.
That's what we're really concerned with, right? That's what we're talking about tonight. It's very nice to open it up for the family. That's all good, but we're here to decide the variance. That's what I'm concerned about. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Also,
Anything else? Anything further, Mr. Cahalan?
No. This is as far as variances go in my world. This is a small variance. It's in the corner, the back corner. When I looked at the property, it will be quite unnoticeable to the neighbors or anybody else, in my estimation.
Thank you, Mr. Cahalan. Mr. Miller, any questions? Mr. Miller?
Maybe on mute.
Oh.
Can you see the?
You know what? I'll skip over Mr. Miller for the moment. Mr. DeMarco?
No questions.
Mr. Nerzia?
My only comment is actually, just for full disclosure, I live at 8 Darcy, so my property abuts up against 63 Joyce Road. So I know this house very well. I could see it from my backyard. But the way this is planned, I wouldn't even see it from the angle where my backyard is. So it would be tucked away behind the extension that it goes towards the back of the house. So I have no questions or comments other than that disclosure.
Okay. And I don't have any questions or comments at this time.
Joe's internet is down. He just emailed me, so I guess he's trying to get back on.
Okay. So,
Mr. Pilla, just for again for Mr. Nurse's thing, we would
Please.
like to show the rear elevation, which is quite pleasant, Mr. Nurse. It's not something that is going to be detrimental to your property. If the back go to the back, is nothing invasive, nothing like detrimental, in my opinion. If anything, we changed the overall look of the siding, and I think with the French doors in the back and the alignment of the windows, even if you see it from your property, it will be pleasant. It won't be detrimental. At
Mr.
least
Nerzi?
in my opinion.
Yeah, Mr. Parangi, I don't know if it's just the
Please.
audio on my side. I'm having trouble hearing you.
Oh, okay. No, I was saying, I don't know if you can hear. I was saying, if you look at the overall rear elevation, in my opinion, even if you see it from your property, it's very simple. One story, nothing that is gonna be detrimental or an eyesore from your property. I think it's gonna look simple. It's simple. It's nothing elaborate, but
Sure.
nothing offensive to look at. This is the way it is now, the rear of the property.
Yeah.
And sorry about the interruption. I just didn't mean to interrupt, Mr. Privas. So sorry about that.
Okay. Mr. Nerzia, anything further?
No questions.
Okay. And I don't have anything at this time. I make a motion at this time to open this matter to the public for public hearings. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Mr. Cahalan, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Tedisco, is there anyone from the public interested in being heard on this application?
You're on mute.
If there is any member of the public who wishes to address the board on this application, please use the raise your hand feature and I'll invite you to unmute yourself. Mr. Chairman, it does not appear that there are any members of the public who wish to address the board on this application.
Okay. Seeing no one or hearing of no one, I make a motion to close the public hearing on this matter. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cahalan, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Back to the board. We'll start left to right. Mr. Cahalan, anything?
Nothing further.
Is Mr. Miller back on right now?
He is actually an attendee on the list here. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Never mind. That's a different Miller. No, he's not.
Okay. Mr. Nerzia, anything?
No questions.
Comments? Mr. DeMarco, anything?
No, thank you.
Okay, and the only comment I have is that the applicant has addressed the 5-part test. It's a de minimis 7.8% application in terms of variation. So I make a motion to adjourn this matter for resolution at the next meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cahalan, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for your application.
Thank you, board members, for your help and your assistance. And Margaret, again, thank you very much for your help and guidance. Very much appreciated.
You're welcome.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The third item on the calendar under new business is 23 Club Way.
Okay. And Joe just emailed me that he's unable to get back up.
Right.
Hopefully that'll change.
So would you like me to start, or can everybody hear me? Everything all right?
We hear you. Why don't you proceed?
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Jonathan Villani, representing Annunziata Villani Design Consultants and the Mastrangia residence located at 23 Club Way. We are looking for a insufficient side. We have an insufficient side yard setback we're requesting of 8 feet, where the required is 12, as well as a rear yard setback, which is 25, and we're requesting 15.8, which is a variance of 9.2. I'm going to share my screen and explain the project briefly and the variances that we're seeking. This is the existing site plan. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
This is presently, this is the existing site plan with the 2-story wood frame structure. There are presently 3 bedrooms. So we're non-conforming at the rear yard. We're looking for a side yard setback variance on the 16.9 feet that's presently at the side yard. The family has obviously, and probably as you've heard on several applications, or a vast number of applications. The family, they have 3 daughters, three small, tiny bedrooms, looking to increase the size of the house so they can stay in the area and live in the area that they want to live in, and create a space that's adequate for 3 growing girls. I'll pull up the proposed site plan. Just let me. Did it switch, or I have to stop sharing and share again?
I could see it.
You see the proposed? Okay, great. So this is the proposed site plan. The hatched area is the proposed addition. We're increasing the side yard, the side of the house 8.9 feet, which is creating an 8-foot setback at the side yard. So the design of this structure is twofold. We wanted to, so it's an existing 3-bedroom home. We're increasing it to 4 bedrooms. So as well as increasing the living space of the kitchen and the living room. Now, from the functionality of it all, the kitchen and the living room and the bedrooms are on that side of the home, as well as from an aesthetic standpoint on the property. If everybody's aware, slopes on the right side of the property. The southern part of the property slopes down. Let me show the existing floor plans. So that's the front elevation of the house. It presently has a kitchen, living area, and dining area on the first floor with a half bath. 3 bedrooms on the second floor with a master bedroom and 2 smaller bedrooms that the girls share. We are proposing a increase of the kitchen and living area and the dining area to more of an open concept, which is the trend to create a more social space instead of a separate dining room, as well as create 3 larger bedrooms on the second floor. So from a functionality standpoint, all the functioning spaces, the bedrooms and the kitchen were on that side of the house. So naturally, to increase that side of the house from an expense standpoint is practical. But from an aesthetic standpoint, the grade drops off to the southern part of the property, which would create a 3-story structure on the right side. And from a scaling standpoint, didn't really look aesthetically pleasing. And putting it on the left side of the property allowed me to step it back and create the proportions I wanted to pop the front of the house out and not create a mass that was too tall. So let me go back to the proposal. So the setback on the side, naturally, and as far as the rear setback, we're keeping the same line of the existing structure. So what happens is, naturally, as you bump it to the left, we're shortening the side yard setback, but as a result, because of the angle of the property line relative to the house, the rear yard setback gets affected by just a little bit greater than 1 foot. So from the existing, obviously it's a little greater than the conforming setback, but from the existing setback of 16.93, the non-conforming setback, we're really just keeping in line of the structure of the house. So when you increase the side yard, the rear yard naturally is getting a little bit smaller because of the angle of the property line. So we from an aesthetic standpoint, we felt it was proper to put it on the left side of the house. From a functioning standpoint and a practical standpoint as well, I think the scale on the right side of the house would be 2. We would also have to get a variance on the right side of the house as well, due to the rear yard. So these are the reasons why we designed it the way we did. I appreciate it. I just feel that this is a move that's just natural with the progression of their family, and needs to be something that has to be done if they're going to stay in the area.
Anything further on your presentation?
One other thing, yes. I spent a lot of time circling the area. A vast number of these properties in these areas have abnormal sizes, undersized, oddly shaped. So I see some common setbacks that we're looking for in other properties around the area. And the scale of the home, I think it still fits on the property well, and doesn't create a detriment to the character of the other houses in the area at all. There's several houses that are relatively close to the property line. And obviously there's this, with the addition of landscaping and certain things that we would do, we would separate the structure from the neighboring property.
Okay. Before I'm sorry? before I open this,
Can I just say something, Alan?
please.
I'm sorry. Janine, the applicant would like to speak. You can just unmute yourself. You don't need to raise your hand, so you can just participate.
Okay. I just wanted to say, first of all, Margaret, I appreciate all the time that you've given us and help just navigating through this process. I started this process right before COVID, and this has been a long time coming to give this presentation to the town. We have lived in this house for 14 years. We had no kids when we moved in here and now have 3 girls, and we've just outgrown the space. We have looked into options of moving, and to stay in this town and buy a 4-bedroom is up to $1 million now. So that's not feasible for us. This would be the best compromise for us to stay and keep our kids in the school. We love this town. I mean, we went from Garth Road to Interlaken to this house. We've been here for over 20 years in total in Eastchester. And, we just hope you understand that this is the best thing for us to do as a family, and we really don't think it interferes at all. The houses across the street from us, I believe, have an 8-foot setback. So I guess it all depends on the zoning. And I just hope you consider our application. We would really appreciate doing this to our house. It would make living here much easier, as now I work from home full time and I'm practically sitting in a closet here talking to you. So we've just outgrown the space here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for adding to that presentation and your time in the town as well, that you've articulated that. Before I open it up to the board for questions or comments, I just want to maybe flesh out, and maybe you can elaborate a little bit on what you mentioned about screening. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yes. Well, we're aware of the concerns with the closeness to the property line. So I spoke to my clients, and they, as a part of their project, they're aware that they would love to put screening along that property line will reduce the scale of the addition, as well as provide privacy for them as well as the neighbor.
What type of screening are we talking about?
Well, whenever I present projects of this magnitude, we usually large evergreens, nothing that's going to go bare in the winter. So evergreens, arborvitaes, something that's going to stay full and plush in the winter as well as summer.
What size do you usually scale them to start?
Well, for me, 6 to 8 feet on the arborvitaes. They grow pretty quickly. I'd get the full ones. I'm not great with the land. I have somebody that tells me which ones to buy. So, the ones that just that stay healthy and full and plush. Okay. And then they go get them for me. So.
Okay.
Thank you for fleshing that out for me.
No problem.
And what I'll do at this juncture is have the board further any questions or comments. It's just Mr. Cahalan had jumped in there. Mr. Cahalan, why don't you continue if you have anything further?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I understand the family's need, and I understand what's going on here. But what I get concerned with is just the town-wide look. And we have, 33 and 36-foot variances. Anything over 30 feet to me is a serious variance that you're requesting. And the reason why, there's always a good reason why. I'm not so concerned with the rear setback, even though it's bigger than the side setback at 36 feet. When I looked at the property on the weekend, you're in the back. There's nothing really behind you. Your neighbors are set back. I don't think it's going to impact your side neighbor at 17 in any which way. So even though it's 36.8 feet in the rear, it's a severe variance as far as I'm concerned. But I don't think it has the impact that another type of variance of that size would have. That said, I do have a concern with the side variance of 33 feet, 33%. That's a third. That's a serious variance that does impact your neighbor. So I'm happy to hear that you're talking about the 6 to 8 foot arborvitaes, because I would suggest that's what would be needed if this variance was to be approved. The other thing I want to point out
Mr. Cahalan, can I jump in for a second?
Who was speaking?
It's Mark DeMarco.
Sure, go ahead.
With respect to that side yard variance, we received a letter from, I believe it must have been your neighbor, who proposed rather a 25% variance as opposed to a 33.3 variance, which would amount to roughly a foot. How do you feel about that proposal, Mr. Villani?
Because that was one of my questions, is if you reduced it by a foot, what does that change the size of the bedrooms to?
If we look at the bedrooms, if you look at the bedrooms on the second floor, let me just blow this up. So the ones that would get affected, every one of the bedrooms would get squeezed down a foot. I would probably maintain the 11-foot bedroom down to the same 11 feet and take it away from the 15-foot 2-bedroom wide, because it would slide from left to right on your screen.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 15-foot 9-bedroom would slide down to 14-foot 9. I
mean, those are pretty good sized bedrooms, and I understand, girls especially, they need their closet space.
Yeah.
Like and that's where you're putting some of the room in there. I get that. I appreciate it. Having a daughter, I fully understand the closets are important. But it's not a request from the public. It's one of the best written, well thought out requests we've ever gotten from a neighbor, in my opinion. They were very thoughtful and concise. They did the math, which most people can't do. And I thought it was a reasonable request for the 1 foot. So, that was one of the things. But one thing I wanted to point out to you is in your submission, you don't talk about the side yard setback. In, I think, number 3 of the variance test. You point out to the rear, but to me, the way I read it, you really didn't mention the side. So, in the future, you should really put in both variances when you're talking about it. Because the side one, in my opinion, is more serious than the rear in this particular example that we're talking about. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Cahalan. Would you like to reply?
Myself? No.
Okay. Good. I thought you were saying something.
I was just saying noted from what he said. I'm taking notes on that.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, do you have anything?
No questions at this time.
Mr. Nerzia?
Just to follow up with Mr. Cahalan's comments about the possibility of altering the size of those bedrooms, bringing it in a foot. So if that's something that you and your client could discuss, that would be helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Nerzia. Mr. DeMarco, anything further on your questioning?
No.
Any comments? Okay, I don't have anything at the moment. I make a motion to open the matter to the public for a public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cahalan, all in favor?
Aye.
Attorney Tedisco, is there anyone from the public looking to be heard on this application?
Anyone from the public who wishes to address the board on this application, please use the raise your hand feature and I'll invite you to unmute yourself. Mr. Chairman, at this time, it does not appear that any members of the public wish to address the board on this application.
Okay. Well, thank you. So having heard that, I make a motion to close the public hearing on this matter. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, back to the board. Mr. Cahalan?
I've, just to stress that if they're willing to put the arborvitaes in as part of the application, I think that's a great thing to do. I don't know how they feel about the 1 foot reduction, but it doesn't seem all that it's going to change the footprint that much.
Mr. Miller, anything?
Still no questions.
Mr. Nerzia?
No questions, no comments.
Okay. Mr. DeMarco?
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I happen to agree with Mr. Cahalan on that side yard variance.
That's the first time this year. So
as far as I'm concerned, before I'll make my comment firstly, and then maybe we can discuss this with the applicant, because my concern was more the screening than it was the size of the variance. So there are 2 board members that have expressed some concern about minimizing and mitigating the variance. Is the applicant interested in considering that?
I don't know. Is my client? Did my client leave the?
I'm here.
And by the way,
you don't have to discuss it tonight.
I'm not asking you to commit to that.
I thought we were going to do it right here and now.
What I'm suggesting is if I may, so that people are not talking over each other, let me conduct the meeting. So, if I may, what we've had in the past, since the public has been hearing has been closed on this, that when applicants either mitigate or they diminish the level of the area variance, the public hearing remains closed because there's nothing further to be heard on that. So I could do one of two things. I could either move to resolve to have the application ruled upon and decided upon at the next meeting, or if you plan on amending your application in any way, depending on that amendment, we could resolve to leave the application open, and we may or may not open up the public hearing.
Didn't you just close the public hearing or not?
I did.
Yeah, so you can't reopen it unless you open it right now. Yeah,
well, that's what I'm
Okay.
asking the
So if we're not, I'm trying to understand this.
So I'll explain it. If you're leaving the application the way it is,
Okay.
or if you decide to diminish the application, we could resolve now to decide upon the application at the next meeting. And the board, if you do diminish, amend the application and diminish the amount of variance that you're requesting, then that could still be decided upon at the next meeting. Or you can leave the application the way it is. So you could do so. And I don't need to do anything further in opening the public hearing.
Okay.
can Alan?
Yeah, you could. Ginny, do you want to speak, or do you? Oh,
I'm
she's-
sorry. I just want to hear what Margaret was going to say.
Yeah,
This is really
Alan,
good.
in all honesty, you're kind of confusing me as well. First of all, I think if they're going to reduce the scope of the variance, then there's, under any circumstances, unless they're going to increase the variance, there's no reason to reopen to keep the public hearing open. But I think I really think if you're inclined to say we're going to deny the application unless you reduce a foot off of that footprint, they need to know that. Like, I'm a little bit confused what you're asking them to do. I think it sounds like they're pretty committed to the evergreen screen. And so is the outstanding issue now is you're asking them how committed they are to possibly modifying the footprint?
No, I'm not asking for that at all. I'm sorry. Maybe I wasn't clear. What I'm suggesting is that I've made my comments about the application. As I mentioned earlier, as far as the 5-part test is concerned, I don't see that as my concern. My concern was the screening, and they seem to have addressed that. What I'm suggesting is that 2 board members have commented on possibly diminishing the size of the variance. And I just want the applicant to know that if we move for resolution, it'll be decided upon, and they can diminish their application, the size of their variance, and it could still be decided upon in the next meeting, but that we're not requiring them to do so.
Yeah, but again, that's implying that I think if you have to, you're still confusing me. I'm assuming
Hold on. One person speak at a time. Go ahead.
I'm assuming that ideally they would not, want to reduce the footprint. So I think if you have 2 members that sounded like that might be important to them, you said that doesn't seem to be too significant. I think maybe the other 2 members should weigh in on that, because I don't think it's either you're saying you're all in favor of the arborvitae. I think you need to give more direction with regard to it, otherwise to me it's kind of sounds like you're gambling. You can come back with the footprint that you have and we might deny you, or you can reduce it and we may approve. But I don't understand why people aren't being more specific with regard to how they feel about reducing the footprint. If everyone's on board with the arborvitae, I think you can just kind of explain how important that additional reduction of 1 foot is, and then the applicant can, and then the applicant knows specifically how to proceed.
Okay. Well, why don't we do this? Let me go back through the board again then to make it easier. So, Mr. Cahalan?
Okay, I'll be very clear.
Please.
As clear as I can be. My issue is with a 33% side setback. That can be reduced to 25% with a 1 foot change. I would suggest, I would feel better about this application if they just took the 1 foot out. That way we end up with a 25% variance, which is still substantial, but is something that I could live with, and would garner a much more favorable way I would see the application. So that's where I'm at. That's what I'm asking for, is if they would be willing to reduce it by a foot to bring down the overall variance to 25%.
Thank you, Mr. Cahalan. Mr. Miller?
Whether it's reduced by a foot or not doesn't make a difference to me, whether I'm going to deny or approve the application. So I can't speak for how the applicant wants to proceed, but in my view, it's not going to make a difference to how I rule on your application.
Mr. Nerzia?
I concur with Mr. Cahalan.
Okay. Mr. DeMarco?
So do I.
With whom?
With Mr. Cahalan, I'm sorry.
Okay. And no, it's okay. And I've said what I've said. So therefore, I think that gives the applicant a little better clarity on where the board, each board member is thinking on the application. So.
Okay. Hi.
Yes, please.
So I just want to understand the process. Are there 5 board members? And I'm understanding that 3 are asking us to reduce it by a foot and 2 are saying it's fine as is. And we all agree the trees will be put.
Well, let me paraphrase that as well. I'm sorry to interrupt you. It seems like the mitigation with the arborvitae or evergreens seems to be a significant element of your application, your presentation. And I think all the board members have expressed interest in that that being done. As it relates to your variance application, Mr. Miller has stated that it doesn't, whether you reduce it or not, really doesn't play in on his decision. I've said that I don't see it as significant, and the other 3 board members have voiced that they would like to see you mitigate that variance.
Okay, so I just want to understand, are there 5 board members?
Correct.
Okay, well, that's what I just wanted to understand. Yes, we agree that we will add the cost of the trees, to put the separation in. So do we have to decide right now whether we are willing to take the foot out? Okay.
You do not, and I am sorry. I would be more clear for you that what the board is doing right now, we're not deliberating and we're not deciding. We want to give you as clear an indication as we can as to how, at this juncture, we're viewing your presentation in the 5-part test, and that's how each board member has expressed his view on the application.
Okay, so I guess my honest opinion is I would like to keep it the way it is. I'm open to reducing the foot, but it's going to be very costly for us to do the project. So, losing a foot may not make that much of a difference in concept, but it does, financially, I would like to get the whole space, but I guess we would be open to the compromise if needed.
And also, it's not fair at this juncture to put you on the spot like this because you can modify, you can take the opportunity to consider it and to digest everything you've heard, and you may either not modify it or modify it in other ways that maybe you haven't considered at this moment under the pressure of the board asking you questions and making comments. So what I'm going to do at this juncture, having heard the board thoroughly deliberate or at least give their comments on the application and your thoughts, that what I'm going to do is make a motion to adjourn this matter for resolution at the next meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cahalan, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So what will happen is we are going to decide your application at the next meeting, and you'll have until that
Mr.
time.
Chairman,
Please. Was that Mr. Tedisco?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Yes, it is. I was just, I wanted to echo your comment. I always feel uncomfortable putting an applicant on the spot in front of the board. I think that based upon some of the concerns and questions that she's raised, I think in all fairness, it would be a good idea for her to speak to her architect outside of the meeting. And what I would suggest is that the application is as it is. You can.
Mr. Tedisco, you're breaking up, but I think all you're doing is just repeating what I'm saying. So I'll just amplify that you have every right to leave the application as it is, or to modify it in any way that diminishes the amount of variance that you're requesting. So you should take the opportunity to consider those things and not feel you have to make a decision now, because you have up until a few days before the next meeting. So you'll submit any changes, and the board will have an opportunity to see those as well. Mrs. Yulee, is there a deadline on that, or is that up in almost up until the date of the next meeting?
Well, there's some deadlines, but I'll discuss those with the applicant.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mrs. Yulee. So again, just to recap, as there's been a lot of discussion here, your application will be decided upon at the next meeting. Your architect, you can reconvene and discuss any number of permutations from leaving the application as it is to diminishing the variance in any number of ways that you can come up with. You can discuss it with Mrs. Yulee, and we will decide upon it in the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
For your presentation and your time.
Thank you. Same to you. Thank you.
Take care.
Right.
Okay. Is there any other business before I move to adjourn the meeting?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Miller?
I am going to request somewhat of a mulligan here, and I make this application out of pure embarrassment. On the Harney Road application, at the time that it was read, quite frankly, I was a little distracted with the text message I had received saying my brother and brother-in-law had got COVID.
I'm sorry.
And I, quite frankly, I had intended to vote yes and inadvertently voted yes, not only once, but twice.
You voted no.
I'm asking to reopen the vote on the Harney Road application.
Okay.
This is
Mr.
unheard
Tedisco, counsel, can
This is
you?
unheard of.
Yeah,
Oh, wait, can I just say something?
Mrs. Yulee, please go ahead.
Mr. DeMarco made a motion, and Mr. Miller indicated that he made that he was distracted and he misunderstood and he made a mistake. I don't think that's, and I don't think you can deny an application based on a mistake. I don't think there's any problem with, having Mr. DeMarco reintroduce the, there was a reason.
What I can do,
that the
Margaret,
motion,
is I can make, Margaret, can you hear me? I can
Yes.
make a motion to vacate the prior decision and make another application.
Now he's a judge.
well, again, this is, if you think about it, Mark DeMarco, there was a reason he made a motion to approve the application, because I poll the board and we draft resolutions based on having polled the board. That's a perfectly appropriate and legal way to do it. So Mr. Miller indicated he simply made a mistake. So I think, like Mark DeMarco said, he can say a mistake was made. I'm going to reintroduce the motion and we're going to revote. And then we'll see, what the outcome is that time. But I don't see that there's a big issue when a mistake is acknowledged immediately within the meeting. In fact, Mr. Miller had texted me immediately thereafter, but we had moved on to other issues.
Okay. Well, so under Robert's rules, I believe Mark's motion is a motion to withdraw his motion.
No, well, allow me, Mr. Pillar. I have
Please.
an application. I have an application to vacate the board's prior vote on application number 2103, 48 Harney Road. All in favor?
Hold on, before you do that, Mark, is there a second? Okay, so it's 4-1 on the motion. The motion's carried. Okay, so now we're revoting
Now,
under
if I
a
may,
motion.
with respect to application 2103, with respect to 48 Harney Road, I have a motion to approve the resolution.
Okay, is
For
there a
that
second to
applicant.
that motion?
Second.
Mr. Miller. All right, back to the vote. Mr. Cahalan?
Abstain.
Abstain. Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Nerzia?
Same vote, yes.
Mr. DeMarco?
Yes.
I vote no. The application's been approved 3-1 with one abstention.
And the record should be clear that the reason for this second vote is we subsequently learned after the first vote rejecting the application that a mistake was made by Mr. Miller, who was distracted by a very important family matter.
I just wanted to clarify because my screen kind of fuzzed out. Somebody abstained from the vote, and that was
Mr. Cahalan?
Mr. Cahalan. Okay.
Is that all, Mr. Tedisco?
That is all.
Okay. Is there any other business to discuss? Okay, seeing nothing, I make a motion to adjourn the March meeting. Our next meeting is April 13th. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Yes.